You know, I'll be honest with you. I think the NFL knew exactly what they were doing with this whole Bad Bunny situation. I think they knew exactly what. I mean, look, when has there ever been a more talked about halftime show? You find a Trump-hating Latino who refuses to speak English during, ICE is raiding places in Portland and Chicago. I mean, of course you're going to get more free publicity than you even would have gotten with Taylor Swift. What's up? This is Mark K. Saves the Republic. We've got that big story coming up here in just a minute. We'll talk a little bit about Bad Bunny and who now Republicans want to replace him. Donald Trump, Mike Johnson, they're making their opinions known on the Bad Bunny situation, which again, the NFL, you would think that the NFL would have learned their lesson during the whole George Floyd, take a knee, fist to the air, end racism on the back of the helmets, fight hate, all that kind of thing. You'd have thought they would have learned their lesson, but again, they're the NFL. They don't learn their lesson at all. You would have thought that they'd already ostracized enough of their fan base that they wouldn't do it again, but they're going to do it again. In the meantime, we're also chit-chatting later today with Dinesh D'Souza, who has a new movie out, and tonight is the last night you can see it in theaters. It's called The Dragon's Prophecy, and he's going to unpack that for really fascinating movie. I got a chance to see it myself, and really, I mean, even it doesn't matter what side you come down on as far as the Israeli-Gaza situation, but I will say this, the biblical prophecies and the links between what's happening in the current news cycle and the stories of the book of Revelation, gives me chills when I see how some of these things may be coming to light. Something that's not coming to light is an end to the government shutdown, man. It continues. And for more on the government shutdown and the latest on the government shutdown, here's me.
Yeah, Mark, do you agree with those statements? I know personally, I'm also extremely just frustrated by the shutdown because I fly out Friday, and I know the FAA is now warning flights are now, a lot of them, the major airports are going to be delayed a minimum of 2 hours because of this shutdown. And a lot of, they're essential workers, but a lot of these people that work at the airports, they're calling in sick now. Guess what? Because they're not going to get paid. Mark, How frustrating is this? I mean, do you feel Trump's frustration?
I do, and I like that he used kamikaze and Kamala Harris in the same statement because, fun fact, that's Kamala's favorite drink when she goes out to the bar. But the kamikaze attack metaphor is very interesting. He equated it to the Democrats having absolutely nothing left to lose. They hold no political power or clout in any branch of government. That none of their voters are appreciative of what they're doing anymore. Their approval ratings are in the toilet. So, like a kamikaze fighter, the only thing they can do is crash into the deck of the ship and try to sink it. The only problem is with kamikaze fighters, we don't have to listen to them do press conferences every single day, but unfortunately we do for the Democrats. So President Donald Trump, he's frustrated. He wants the government open, but as he pointed out, he's going to take full advantage of what the Democrats have done, and that has handed him this budget slashing ability on a silver platter. I just hope he gets to it sooner than later, because I think the sooner he starts cutting back on government workers and programs, the sooner the Democrats are going to realize this is a bad idea, and they'll come back and vote to reopen the government. Fingers crossed it's before your flight on Friday.
Believe me.
Well said, me. Am I the only person that plays news clips of myself? Probably. And I have to imagine that, the late, great Rush Limbaugh used to do that all the time. He would always say, he would just play clips of his own show and then pat himself on the back for being right. But look, this is 100% the Democrats' fault. Donald Trump says if there's delays at the airport, they're Democrat delays.
They're all Democrat delays. There are delays at the airport. That's standard. And again, this is something that every day we put forth a bill. It's just a continuation. It's a very simple thing to sign and very simple to do. And I really think that these are people that I think they have nothing to lose. They have a party that's out of control. They have no leader. Nobody knows who the leader is. I look at people with very low IQs like Crockett, this woman Crockett. I never met her, but she's a low IQ individual. I look at AOC talking about how if they want to negotiate, they can come to my office. She's not in that position to do that.
Well, neither is anybody else, but that's neither here nor there when it comes to the Democrat Party. But he's right. There's no leadership in the Democrat Party. Everybody's vying for attention. Everybody thinks they're in charge. Chuck Schumer, Hakeem Jeffries, AOC, Jasmine Crockett. And oh yeah, let's not forget the Queen Bee herself, Nancy Pelosi. Nancy Pelosi, I guess she woke up and realized, whoa. Nobody's coming to her anymore. Nobody's asking her opinion anymore. She's not in charge anymore. Yes, she's the Speaker Emeritus, whatever that is, of the House of Representatives. Yes, she's still old, but nobody seems to care about her anymore. She started, ever since you start when you walk into the House chamber wearing orthopedic shoes and carrying ski poles so you don't fall down, I guess they start looking toward the younger generation. But she was on CNN, and Dana Bash asked her about it and said, look, why is it you're not voting for this clean CR? And Nancy Pelosi had a real Joe Biden moment.
The point is,
yeah, that's yeah.
I understand what you're saying about where the differences are, and they are very big. They are voting yes on what we say here in Washington, a clean CR, a bill to keep the government running for 7 weeks, and Democrats are voting no, and for the reasons you just said. So how are they shutting down the government?
First of all, it isn't a clean CR.
Okay.
So let's not stipulate to that. It's not a clean CR.
What do they have in it?
Going into that. The point is,
she she went all John Fetterman on everybody. The point is, right. Also, she said it's not a clean CR, and Dana Bash is like, wait a minute, what's not clean about it? What do you mean it's not a clean CR? There's absolutely nothing attached to it. The only people trying to attach things to this CR are the Democrats. But Nancy Pelosi doesn't want you to know that, or she doesn't understand that, or she has no clue where she is anymore.
the point is,
Yeah, it's very difficult. And look, again, we're not saying that Nancy Pelosi wasn't once a force in the House of Representatives. I'm sure she was. Now, though, she's just an afterthought. She's not being hauled into meetings. She's not the one strategizing. She's not the one planning for the future. Her old arch nemesis, AOC, and look, don't listen to what Nancy Pelosi tells the press, because she's never once told the press anything at all that is true. And case in point, she just told Dana Bash on CNN this wasn't a clean CR. Girlfriend, it's about the cleanest CR when anyone's ever seen. Yes, it keeps the government open on Joe Biden's levels, which again, you would think the Democrats would be all hype about. Wow, we get 7 more weeks of outrageous spending under Joe Biden's budget. Wow, that's amazing. No, they want more. They just want to dig into your pocketbook even more. And Nancy Pelosi's lying to the press saying it's not a clean CR. She lied to the press when she said the guy at her husband's house wasn't a lover or whatever. I don't even know what the whole thing was. She lied to the press when she talked about, having to pass Obamacare before you could even read it. She lied to the press about January 6th and the National Guard troops. And we know that because her daughter released video of her saying, this is my fault. We know all of the lies that Nancy Pelosi's told. And now she's out. And one of the biggest is she said that AOC is a wonderful person and a very strong woman and a great Democrat. And she comes to the party when they need her. AOC and Nancy Pelosi hate each other. AOC walked into Congress, took one look at Nancy Pelosi and said, oh, heck no. This is my Congress now. This is my house. And you're going to go, she's trying to relegate Nancy Pelosi to the mother-in-law suite. And Nancy Pelosi is not having that. AOC is large and in charge, and anybody who needs to or thinks otherwise can just look at Chuck Schumer and see that Chuck Schumer, it continues to be petrified by this bartender from the Bronx. And as a result, the government shutdown continues. The kamikaze attack continues.
It's almost like a kamikaze attack.
Yeah, that's exactly what it is. I want to know the truth, President Trump. It's a kamikaze attack, and you got all these Democrats, and they are just plowing the nose of their airplanes into the ship called the USS, or the US of A, and they're trying to sink it. They're trying to take us all down with them because they have no political capital. They have no political hope. They have no political power. The only power, think about this. The only power they have is to not do their jobs. The only power they have is to get in the way of hardworking individuals and Americans from doing their jobs. The Democrats in the Senate right now are no different than the protesters who glue their hands to the street and gum up traffic for hours. They're no different than the protesters who line up on the thoroughfare and shut down the freeway. They're no different than any of those people. The people on the streets of New York and Portland who are burning things and yelling and chanting and spitting in ICE officers' faces, those people who are trying to shut down the city, who are trying to keep commerce from happening and people from making a living for themselves, those people, those crazy lunatic liberals on the streets with the crazy glue and the cement and the bullhorns and the foul language and all that other crap, they're exactly the same as the Democrats in the Senate. The Democrats in the Senate are doing the same thing. They're laying down in the road, and they're not allowing the United States government to reopen. There's no difference between the two. I don't know when the next vote is going to be. I don't believe it's going to be today, maybe not even tomorrow, but the government shutdown continues. Now, the good news is President Donald Trump's tariffs are working. Donald Trump said the WIC program will stay open. Why? Well, because we got all this tariff money. We got billions of dollars coming in every day from tariffs that Donald Trump put into place. And wouldn't you know it, it's a rainy day. We can dip into our rainy day tariff fund and we can keep WIC open, which, maybe looks like those tariffs weren't such a bad idea after all. You know what was a bad idea? Bad Bunny for the Super Bowl halftime show. Whose idea was that? President Donald Trump the other day was on Greg Kelly Reports on Newsmax, and he was asked about it. And Donald Trump said, yeah, and look, Donald Trump's a big football fan, has been a big football fan. He knows Roger Goodell. He knows Jerry Jones. He knows a lot of, Tom Brady used to have a MAGA cap in his locker up at Foxborough. So we know that, there's a lot of conservatives in the NFL. There's a lot of conservatives, billionaires, tend to be conservative because they don't want to be taxed at the yin yang. And there's a lot of billionaires who own football teams. So, Donald Trump has gone to he went to the Pittsburgh Steelers game. Remember, he got a rousing round of applause. People were chanting USA. They love him there. They don't love Bad Bunny, and that's why it makes it quizzical why Bad Bunny was chosen again. And this is the story that won't go away. The NFL, they picked Bad Bunny. NBC immediately threw him on Saturday Night Live. He spoke in Spanish and told every non-Spanish speaking American, you have 4 months to figure out what I said, or else you're not going to understand the Super Bowl halftime show. And everybody's scratching their head going, why would you pick this Puerto Rican Trump hater who refused to do performances in the United States because he was afraid his illegal alien fans would get hauled away by ICE? Why would you pick him to be the Super Bowl halftime performer, put him up on NBC and tell everybody you better learn how to speak Spanish? That doesn't seem like you're trying to bridge the gap or close the divide or entice the largest audience possible into watching your broadcast. And Greg Kelly asked Donald Trump about this, and he went off.
I never heard of him. I don't know who he is. I don't know why they're doing it. It's like crazy. And then they blame it on some promoter that they hired to pick up entertainment. I think it's absolutely ridiculous. And while we're at it, I'd like them to change the kickoff rule, which looks ridiculous, where the ball is kicked and the ball is floating in the air and everyone's standing there watching it. It's ridiculous. It's not any safer than the regular kickoff. I think it just looks so terrible. I think it really demeans football, to be honest with you. It's a great game, but it demeans football. Do you know what I mean by that? The kickoff rule, the new kickoff rule.
Yeah, I love, by the way, I love Greg Kelly's face. Greg Kelly thought he was going to get Donald Trump to go off for 5 minutes on Bad Bunny, and Donald Trump said it's a dumb choice. I never heard of the guy. They're blaming it on the promoter. It's horrible. It's terrible. It's no good. It's very bad. But while we're at it, can we talk about the kickoff rule? Because that kickoff rule is really stupid. To me, yeah, Bad Bunny sucks. He's anti-American. He's a horrible choice. They shouldn't do it. They shouldn't have him perform. But that kickoff rule, God, that just burns my butt, doesn't it? It doesn't. They're trying to keep people safe. If you want to keep people safe, how about this? Don't play football. If you want to keep people safe, how about play golf? That's a much safer sport. You don't need to wear a helmet when you're playing golf. Although I think John Daly did once, but that was a totally different reason. But Donald Trump, he's got a lot of grievances with the NFL. Bad Bunny, the kickoff rule, I'm sure, and I agree with him wholeheartedly on both of those. I agree with him on the kickoff rule. I think it's stupid. I agree with him on Bad Bunny. I don't think he's a good choice. Mike Johnson, the Speaker of the House of Representatives, was also asked about Bad Bunny. And here's what he said.
Any reaction to Bad Bunny being chosen as the Super Bowl halftime performance?
I didn't even know who Bad Bunny was, but it sounds like...
By the way, this does not shock anybody at all. Mike Johnson is one of the doofiest people in the entire world. He's a nice guy. I'm sure he's lovely, very intelligent. I know he's well versed and well read and well educated. He's from Louisiana. But look, the fact that he's not what you would call, one of the cool kids, I don't think. So the fact that he has no idea who Bad Bunny is doesn't surprise. No one should be shocked by that. Oh, let me play. I'm sorry. Let me resume with the rest of the clip.
Terrible decision, in my view, from
what I'm
hearing. What's that?
How come?
Well, it sounds like he's not someone who appeals to a broader audience, and I think there's so many eyes on the Super Bowl, a lot of young impressionable children, and I think in my view, you would have Lee Greenwood or role models doing that, not somebody like this.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Oh, God. Lee Greenwood. Well, I mean, why not Lee Greenwood? Lee Greenwood. Lee Greenwood seems like a fantastic choice. Lee Greenwood at the Super Bowl halftime show, he could come out, he could sing Proud to be an American. He could then sing Proud to be an American again. Maybe he could even sing it in Spanish. But I don't know. Like Lee Greenwood, why isn't Lee Greenwood invited to the Super Bowl? Why don't we have American artists at the Super Bowl? Why do we choose these Puerto Rican people who sing in Spanish and don't like ICE and don't like Donald Trump and refuse to even perform? Think about that. This guy canceled his tour in the United States of America, and now we're putting him on the largest stage in the entire world, which happens to be, fun fact, in the United States of America. Why not Lee Greenwood, who is American, who has been an American his entire life, who sings in English, who likes Donald Trump, who likes all America, who wrote a song about being proud? This guy, Bad Bunny, is so proud to be Puerto Rican. Let him go sing at the Puerto Rican World Series of, I don't know, of Highlight or whatever they have over. I don't even know what they do in Puerto Rico. Why don't we have Lee Greenwood, an American, sing a song in English about how proud he is to be an American at the National Football League's World Championship game, the Super Bowl? Just makes perfect sense to me. That's why the Democrats in the NFL don't want it to happen. That's why the Democrats in the music industry don't want it to happen. Because keep in mind, there's two factions at work here. There's the NFL and there's the music industry. And they're both traditionally, sports is a traditionally liberal institution. When you look at the ESPNs of the world, when you look at the broadcasters, sports typically, not the players, not the coaches, not the owners, but the media and the people who plan these events and the people who pick the performers, they are liberal. Case in point, Eric Dickerson, a former football, I think is Eric Dickerson a Hall of Famer? I'm pretty sure he is. Eric Dickerson was pinned down by TMZ, and he went off about this Bad Bunny pick.
I'm not surprised the NFL to do something like this. You know, that's how they got that political crap. They like.
I'm not. Listen to what he said, and it's a little tough because they're in a mall, and I guess TMZ doesn't have a shotgun mic. But he goes, "I'm not surprised the NFL would do something like this. This is what they do."
I'm not surprised the NFL to do something like this. You know, that's how they got that political crap. They like they good guys, and they not. But you know. Bad Bunny, where's Bad Bunny from?
Yeah, where's Bad Bunny? He goes, like, the NFL, he goes, they act like they're good guys, but they're not. This is the kind of crap that they do. And Eric Dickerson, he knows this kind of stuff. Eric Dickerson, running back for 11 seasons. The Rams, the Colts, the Raiders, the Falcons. I'm pretty sure he's in the, was inducted into the Pro Football Hall of Fame in 1999. So yeah. And in 2019, he was named to the NFL 100th anniversary all-time team. He is widely regarded as one of the greatest running backs of all time. He wore prescription goggles throughout his career. No, okay, nobody cares. Nobody cares about what he wore, that he wore the goggles. But he's one of the greatest running backs of all time. He goes, I'm not at all shocked. This is the kind of crap the NFL. By the way, where's Bad Bunny from?
He's from Puerto Rico.
From Puerto Rico. You don't want to. If you don't like the U.S., keep his ass over there.
Apparently, Puerto Rico is part of the U.S.
I know, but still, if you don't want, he don't like the U.S. I mean, don't come in and perform.
A lot of parents are kind of up in arms because some of his content's kind of adult.
Yeah.
He talks about partying, women, this and that. You know, what do you make of that? Is that okay?
Well, I mean, what songs don't? What about the rappers? I mean, you know, hey, like I said, I mean, I heard some stuff he said about the United States. So you know, I'm from the U.S. I love my country. And if you don't like the United States, get your ass out here. Don't come over here.
Yeah, if you don't like, they're okay. Puerto Rico, is it part of the United States of America? The United States is consists of 50 states. Is Puerto Rico a state? No. It's a territory. Is it an unincorporated territory? Yes. Is it its own sovereign nation? No. It's one of those weird things. Like, if that's the case, then Bad Bunny's in the wrong, because Bad Bunny said he refuses to play in the United States of America. So he's going to do shows in Puerto Rico. Well, which is it? Is Puerto Rico part of the U.S. or not? You can't argue both sides of the issue. Kristi Noem was also asked on the Benny show. Benny Johnson's been hanging out with Kristi Noem a lot, and he asked her about Bad Bunny, because the other thing that popped up, and this is another reason why this whole thing's so bizarro. Bad Bunny said he doesn't want to perform in the United States because he doesn't want ICE. He's one of those anti-ICE performers, right? He's like Zach Bryan. It's like Zach Bryan and Bad Bunny. They're all anti-ICE. They don't like ICE. ICE is knocking down the doors. Cops are bad. Cops are bad mofos, according to Zach Bryan. So Bad Bunny now is saying, I don't want to perform in the United States of America because I don't want ICE agents to show up at my concerts and arrest my fans. Well, if your fans are here illegally, that's well within their right to show up and arrest their fans. And then Corey Lewandowski, a couple of other people said, we're going to have ICE agents at the Super Bowl. It became a whole big thing. Well, Benny Johnson asked Kristi Noem about it. Here's what she said.
What is your message to the NFL? What is your message to Bad Bunny? Will there be ICE enforcement at the Super Bowl?
There will be, because the Department of Homeland Security is responsible for keeping it safe. So I have the responsibility for making sure everybody goes to the Super Bowl, has the opportunity to enjoy it and to leave, and that's what America is about. So yeah, we'll be all over that place. And we're going to enforce the law. So I think people should not be coming to the Super Bowl unless they're law-abiding Americans who love this country.
And your message to the NFL with this decision? It seems like they were trying to send a message to the Trump administration.
Well, they suck, and we'll win, and God will bless us, and we'll stand and be proud of ourselves at the end of the day, and they won't be able to sleep at night because they don't know what they believe, and they're so weak. We'll fix it.
Thank you. Thank you, Madam Secretary.
They suck and will win. That's that's Kristi Noem. That's crazy. Roger Goodell, if you're listening, and again, I know the NFL is like, well, we don't want to get political, blah, blah, blah. If you're too late, you picked Bad Bunny, someone approved, someone signed off on it. Roger Goodell had to have signed off on this thing. And, and again, maybe I feel bad for Roger Goodell, maybe I don't, because, if Mike Johnson has no idea who Bad Bunny is, that Roger Goodell has no idea who Bad Bunny is. But he comes in here, someone goes, we need your signature on this. What is it? Approval for the Super Bowl halftime show. Who? Bad Bunny? All right, fine, I'll sign it. And then all of a sudden, the Department of Homeland Security Secretary is telling the NFL, you suck, we'll win. And oh yeah, we're going to have ICE agents at the Super Bowl. Fun fact, they would have had ICE agents at the Super Bowl anyway because it's in California. I believe San Francisco's, it's still in California. It was in California. And their job, one of the largest targets is the Super Bowl, wherever it happens to be. Security for football games in general is immense. Snipers at every game, bomb-sniffing dogs at every game, facial recognition at every game. It's intense security at any NFL football game. The Super Bowl, it's the most watched event of the entire year. Of course, there's going to be stringent security. Of course, Homeland Security is going to be all over it. And of course, you're going to have ICE agents in the parking lot. Will they be targeting anyone wearing a Bad Bunny shirt? Well, maybe. But, you brought that on yourself, NFL, and you can send whatever message you want to the Trump organization. You can say, hey, Trump organization, we don't like ICE either. So we're going to pick an anti-ICE Trump-hating Puerto Rican who refuses to speak in English to perform at this halftime show. And there's nothing you can do about it. Oh, there's something you can do about it. Kristi Noem says, this isn't over. You suck. We will win. I'm actually, you know what? I'm actually kind of excited now. I wasn't excited about the Super Bowl halftime show before, but now I'm actually kind of excited about the Super Bowl halftime show. And maybe Lee Greenwood will make an appearance. Wouldn't that be a hoot? Lee Greenwood and Bad Bunny together at the Super Bowl halftime show. That would just be, I don't think, listen, I wouldn't hold my breath. I don't think it's going to happen. I'm just saying it would be a hoot if they were able to get that done. Listen, we've got way more that we're going to cover with this. I also want to get into President Donald Trump's press conference yesterday and this Pacific Palisades fire that they blamed on climate change. Turns out it wasn't climate change. It was arson, which we told you all along. But first, we have a very, very special guest to Mark K. Saves the Republic. It's Dinesh D'Souza, filmmaker, commentator, and of course, the man behind the Dragon's Prophecy film. You can find it at thedragonsprophecyfilm.com. It's in theaters tonight and then streaming. So you can watch it, with a group of people tonight, and then you can stream it whenever you want. Dinesh, thanks for being here. Congratulations on the film.
Hey, thank you very much. I'm very excited about this one. It's a little bit of a new trail for me because my earlier films, in one way or another, have kind of converged on the meaning of America.
Yeah.
This film, goes far afield. It's Israel, it's Hamas, it's radical Islam, but it's also biblical archaeology, biblical prophecy. So it's a tapestry that weaves together the political and the spiritual.
Yeah. And before everybody accuses us of being bought and sold by AIPAC, let me just explain that this movie is every angle of the debate. And the one thing, because I was watching this thing, and at the end of the Dragon's Prophecy, the one thing I really liked is you asked the question that I think most Americans ask, and that is, how do we as Americans react to what's going on in Israel? Because I think a lot of people, they're not really sure now that there is this two-sided debate, which side to be on.
Absolutely. There's been a ferocious critique of Israel from the left, and it's kind of taken over the Democratic Party. Mm-hmm. On the right, that hasn't happened, but a critique has emerged somewhat surprisingly, and it's on completely different grounds.
Yeah.
So the left-wing critique is more along the lines of Israel as a colonizing power. It is occupying land that doesn't belong to it, and it is practicing genocide. Now, you hear echoes of that a little bit from the right, but the right-wing critique is now like plunged into replacement theology. You know, does the New Testament replace the Old? Do Christians have to sort of kick out their Jewish ladder from under them? So the film, amazingly, when I made it, it was less timely than it is now, oddly enough. Because it is suddenly in the middle of this swirling debate on the left and the right. I try to keep my balance in the film. And for example, on the issue of civilian casualties, if you watch the film, you'll know at no point do I excuse these on either side. I say It's a moral horror. In fact, I connect it to the dragon, which is basically the devil.
Yeah.
And I think one of the most poignant lines in the film, I'm quoting the former Israeli Prime Minister Golda Meir. She goes, we can forgive the Arabs for killing our children, but we can't forgive them for making us kill their children. What a memorable and interesting formulation. And this is the kind of analysis you're going to get in this film.
All right, let me ask you about that too, because I didn't even think about the time frame. It's the 2-year anniversary just passed of the attacks, the October 7th attacks, where they invaded from Gaza into Israel. They killed thousands. They kidnapped men, women, children. It was horrific. And you start the film with that. But I didn't even think about that. When did you produce this film? Because it seems like since that event, which you would think would make people kind of a little bitter on Hamas, seems to have had the opposite effect now 2 years later. How long has it been since you, I guess, came up with the idea to, because it was a book, right? It was Jonathan Cahn's book. And you and you completed it when?
Well, we completed the film like 6 weeks ago, recently. And in fact, the last act was to interview Netanyahu and then parachute him into the otherwise already completed film. I was first exposed to biblical archaeology in 2022. I was very intrigued by the way in which, for many, many centuries, in some cases thousands of years, you have these figures like Isaiah, Jeremiah, King David, and even from the New Testament, the high priest Caiaphas, Pontius Pilate. These are guys who are in the Bible, but for a long time they were only in the Bible. And what I discovered is suddenly, in the last several decades, all this evidence is coming out of the ground, inscriptions, stone monuments, clay seals, this kind of thing. And what it's doing is it's authenticating the scriptures. It's actually showing that these were real people and real events. And so I was very fascinated by all that. Then comes October 7th, and I go, wow, are these two things possibly connected? And I realize they are. Why? Because biblical archaeology demonstrates the presence of the Jews in that land going back 4,000 years. And so I started weaving these things together. Then along comes Jonathan Cahn in his book, and he introduces some remarkable parallels between the battles going on now with Israel and ancient battles between the Israelites and the Philistines. And I'm like, never saw it that way. This is really fascinating. And so this movie came about almost like picking up incidental ingredients out of your refrigerator and putting them together and suddenly realizing that this is actually a fascinating tapestry if it can be woven together with some skill.
I love that. You take leftovers and you make a gourmet meal. That's fantastic. One thing that's interesting to me, because the dragon's prophecy, that comes from the book of Revelation, from the 12th chapter. It's the dragon appears in the sky. It's got 7 heads and 10 horns, and it's going to eat. There's the woman with the baby, and this is an interesting thing you said in the movie that I'd never heard before, because I always heard that the dragon was Satan, the devil, that the baby was Jesus Christ, who was brought up to rule the land and taken to heaven. I always thought that the woman was Mary, but you have a different interpretation of that, or I guess Jonathan Cahn has a different interpretation of that prophecy in Revelation.
I think both readings are legitimate. I incline a little bit more to the Khan reading for this reason. The dragon is enraged with the woman. And so you can see the woman literally as Mary, the mother of God, or you can see the woman as Israel having given having given birth to the Messiah in a metaphorical sense, obviously, Jesus being from the line of David. So I think both readings are legitimate. You don't have to actually choose one or the other. To me, these kinds of analyses are interesting for what you can get out of them, how much they illuminate the world around us. So part of what I found startling about Khan is he'll talk about a guy like Samson from the Bible. And he'll say that Samson was captured by the Philistines. The Philistines blinded him. Well, Israel was blinded after October 7th. He says Samson was dragged, the Bible says, to Gaza. Well, Samson was then paraded before people, and they said, we want Samson to entertain us. Pretty much the exact same thing happens after October 7th. So Khan concludes that Samson is, quote, the first hostage of Gaza. Now, whatever you think of the Bible, even if you're not particularly religious, this is just an interesting way to look at it. And that's what this film does. It doesn't try so much to force a conclusion on you. It tries to show you some deep connections that will, I think, raise in your mind the question of whether what you're seeing is merely another act of terrorism, just another war in the Middle East, even just another historical event, or could it be in some ways a biblical event?
And if it is, that's big trouble, because revolution is the end of times for all of us. So if Revelation chapter 12 is coming true, we've all got to make sure our affairs in order. Back to the United States of America and back to Americans, because again, this has really become, I think, surprisingly a hot button issue. And again, you said it's because the left is stoking the flames, which is weird because a lot of American Jews are Democrats and a lot of American Jews support Democrat candidates and Democrat ideas. Yet it seems like the Democrat Party is the one turning on them and perpetuating this anti-Semitism in the United States. I never in my life, and I've been here since I was 8 years old, never in my life ever gave a second thought to Israel being some kind of enemy or some kind of state that we needed to keep our eye on or that was deceiving the United States of America. But with the Epstein files, for example, Tucker Carlson, Candace Owens, it seems now that there is that narrative being introduced into the United States of America. Is that in the prophecy as well, or is that just, politics playing out its hand?
Well, the prophetic element is this, and it's obviously, no, Candace Owens is not named in the book of Revelation.
No.
But here's what it is. The Bible predicts that because Satan hates God and cannot overthrow God, God is more powerful, Satan picks on the things that God cares about, that are important to God. That's why Satan picked on Adam and Eve, right? It's God's cherished creation. They didn't do anything to Satan, but he's like, if I can ruin those two, I'll get the last laugh from God, right? For the same reason, we can expect Satan to pick on the Jews. If the Jews are God's chosen people, even if you just think that was originally the case, the idea here is let's run them off their land from the river to the sea. Let's take their holiest site, which is the site of the Solomonic Temple. Let's stick a big Islamic victory arch on top of that called the Dome of the Rock. And let me, Satan, go sit on top of that. And not only that, if the Christians are as the Bible suggests, spiritual Israelites, if they're like engrafted onto the old covenant, all right, let me go persecute the Christians. Let me go to Nigeria and make sure that their heads are chopped off. So we're seeing two things that the Bible does predict: increasing venom against the Jews, increasing venom against the Christians. That is, in fact, Bible prophecy. Now, you have to apply it to the world in which we live, but when we look around the world, it seems to conform pretty closely to those predicted facts, doesn't it?
Yeah, now you spoke with Benjamin Netanyahu and you said that was kind of a late addition to the film. You had this interview, so you plopped it in at the end and he spoke about it. And he actually mentioned Tucker Carlson and he talked about the MAGA crowd. Tell everyone what Netanyahu said or what he alluded to when he was talking about MAGA, Donald Trump and his supporters like Tucker and Candace and other conservative voices that are not necessarily anti-Israel, but are not as pro-Israel as the president is.
Well, Netanyahu's point, I think, can be summarized in this way, and this is my paraphrase of what he said. It's this. There is a vicious attack going on against the Jews, and there's a vicious attack going on against the Christians. And guess what? It's coming from the same people. It's coming from these Islamic jihadis who are now the greatest threat that we face. And by we, I mean not only Israel, but also the West, also America. Let's remember global jihadis. I mean, they don't wake up in Egypt and Turkey and Pakistan and spend time thinking about Gaza. They want to infiltrate Australia and Canada and Europe and the United States. They want to take over school boards. They want 1,000 Ilhan Omars. So they've got this global agenda. So Netanyahu's point is, if you start going after Israel, if you try to weaken or sever the U.S. tie with Israel, who are you helping? These people, the worst people on the planet. And so Netanyahu's point is, how is this MAGA? How is this pro-America? How is this defending American interests? I mean, I think it's a very powerful and persuasive point that there is a war going on. And if you essentially undermine one side, you're quite clearly helping the other.
Yeah, I've spoken, because I'm Catholic myself, and I've spoken to my priest about this, and he says, look, from a Catholic standpoint, or from a Christian standpoint, really, we don't recognize the state of Israel, we don't recognize the state of Palestine. That's all government politics. There's nothing in the Bible about Israel or Palestine or anything like that being a governmental body. But as Christians, it's the birthplace of our religion, and it's the birthplace of the Messiah. So it's something that we need to pay attention to. From a political standpoint, though, you're right. I've only ever heard the Muslims and the Palestinians yelling "Death to America." I've only ever seen planes fly into buildings that were being piloted by Muslim jihadis. I've never seen an Israeli jumping up yelling "Death to America." Which brings us to what is happening in this country, because you said it's not just attacks from exterior attacks. We've now got infiltration in New York with Zohran Mamdani. We saw what happened just the other night on the October 7th anniversary, where they were parading through the streets of New York. They were in front of Trump Tower. They were bowing down and they were praying, and they were excited about what happened on October 7th. We see what's happening in Michigan, where you have Muslim mayors telling other citizens, you're not welcome here anymore. What is the danger with, I guess, and it's almost like our democracy invites this kind of thing, because we've allowed people to come in and get votes and run for office. And if you get more votes than anyone else, and if you sell your agenda better than anyone else, you win. But that does have a real dramatic effect in this situation, right?
There's a massive propaganda campaign to convince you that if you make any criticisms of any of this, you are somehow Islamophobic.
Right.
Now, the truth of it is, I don't think that this is an issue with Islam itself. I don't think Trump thinks so either. Part of the genius of the Abraham Accords was to bring a lot of Muslim countries into a more cooperative relationship with Israel.
Yeah.
Trump's Gaza plan, he's like, listen, let's get Hamas out of there, but let's bring in the Saudis and let's bring in the guys from Turkey. Let's have an international kind of supervisory board largely made up of Muslims, but to keep the peace and to pave a way to prosperity. So this is not a war against Islam, but we do have to be aware of the agenda of radical Islam, which is in fact to put the whole world under a caliphate and in fact under Sharia law. This is not like my interpretation. Right. This is what they actually say. And where I think things are going wrong on the right is guys like Tucker will actually say things like, well, Sharia law is not so bad. He goes, I like to live in safe streets. I like to walk places where I don't have to worry about somebody stabbing me. And I'm like, well, yeah, but Sharia law is a package. It also includes things like if you choose to get out of Islam, they can put a fatwa on you and kill you, and Allah approves. So if you want Sharia law, you have to discuss it as a package. And this is the kind of thing that Tucker, for example, will never bring up because he knows it would be absolutely objectionable and abominable to the vast majority of Americans.
It's interesting to me because Benjamin Netanyahu, who again is a friend to Donald Trump, they're tight. He comes to the White House. They talk. They have these press conferences. They're doing these deals. He even said, "Yeah, we're working on peace in Gaza." But he's been kind of turned into the enemy, and he has low approval ratings in Israel now. Is he an impediment, do you think, to is he part of the problem? Have these anti-Israel factions been able to really, I guess, propagate and multiply because of Benjamin Netanyahu in any way?
Well, in my view, there was a bitter battle in Israel
Yeah.
before all this happened. They were trying to get rid of Netanyahu. In fact, they had major lawfare going on the guy, very similar to Trump.
Right.
They were also fighting about the role of the Supreme Court. I think this is how they missed it, right? People say, well, how could Israel, they're so smart. How is it that they, and then they're suggesting that maybe Netanyahu knew in advance. No, they missed it for the same reasons that we missed 9/11, not to mention the fact that if an attack occurred right now, we would probably miss it.
Right.
Why? Because we're still getting people to take off their shoes from 25 years ago because there was like this shoe bomber guy on one airplane. And so we're still waiting for like a repeat of 9/11 to occur exactly the way it did before. It's obviously not going to happen that way. So the point here being, I think that Netanyahu probably deserves some accountability about how this happened. They were looking the other way. That's a fact. However, since then, I think he has, well, there is an argument to be made, and my wife makes this argument, and I kind of agree. If Israel had gone in and carpet bombed Gaza on October 8th, they would have gotten away with it. But by slowing it down, stretching it out, 2 years later, it's like people have forgotten about October 7th, but what they see are these images, sometimes propagandized, but nevertheless, images of like children with an outstretched bowl.
Yeah.
It reminds me of the old images of starving kids from India. So this is now implanted on the mind. And the reason I begin the film, by the way, with 10 minutes of October 7th is the American public has not seen that footage.
No, and and the images are powerful on both sides, like you said. That's the footage, and I remember right after October 7th, they brought a whole bunch. I remember Sean Hannity, a whole bunch of other operatives, a whole bunch of other media people were brought together, and they were shown the footage, and they all came out, and they were white as a ghost because they couldn't believe what was seen. And the footage that you show at the beginning of the Dragon's Prophecy is the same, and it jolts you back because you're right. In the last 2 years, we've not seen that footage, but what we've seen is we've seen the footage of Gaza and the starving children, and you start to see people who were never political at all start to get political because it's now a humanitarian effort, and it seems like it's it's a devastating thing. There's fatigue, I guess, from seeing those images. It's a fascinating film, The Dragon's Prophecy. Now you have this film in theaters one night tonight, right, and then it goes to streaming.
Yeah, it was in theaters also Monday night, but it has one night left.
Okay.
We're sort of doing a select theatrical. It's in about 400 theaters. If you go to the website, it's thedragonsprophecyfilm.com. Put in your zip code. It'll pop up the theaters where it's playing near you. So see it in the theater if you can. But if you can't, no problem. Tomorrow, which is October 9th, it goes into streaming. You can pre-order DVDs right now. So the website makes it really easy, but just get it right. It's the Dragons, plural, the dragonsprophecyfilm.com.
Yeah, we have the website up there, and I'll throw it in the description of the video if anyone's watching on YouTube. Real quick, and I know that you've got a lot of press and stuff to do because this is an important film, and it's a really good. And look, Israel aside, Hamas aside, politics aside, religion aside, really fascinating film. I love when you see things that are in the Bible and you can actually relate them to real world circumstances which are going on right now. There's a couple of points in the movie, and I'm not going to spoil it, that really kind of sends shivers up your spine. You're like, oh, that's really, I never even thought of that. So great job on that. Before we go though, I got to talk to you about your son-in-law because Brandon Gill is your son-in-law. The last time I saw you was at Tim Pool's place, and he was running, and now he's in Congress, and he's just doing a bang-up job. I mean, how much fun do you have watching him take on, what's her name from NPR, for example, or any of these other Democrats?
Oh my gosh, yes, I sit back and I just chuckle with, I admit, a certain type of parental pride. We knew that he had the goods.
Yeah,
we knew that he was the whole package. But it's one thing to know that, sort of in a family sense. It's another thing to sort of, put your son-in-law out there and then watch him do his thing. And he is absolutely hitting home runs. So people sometimes ask, do you guys discuss issues? And I'm like, actually, no. This is a case of like letting the bird fly out of the nest, and off he goes, and he's doing great. So I don't have anything to tell him. He knows what he's doing.
I'm saying, holidays at your house. You got Brandon Gill, your daughter as well, Danielle, and then you, and apparently your wife as well. You've got to get into some fun political discussions over the holidays. But
totally. But remember, we also have the 2-year-old and the 4-month-old who want to take control of the situation. So
that is true.
That is the nature of grandparenthood, my friend.
Dinesh D'Souza, what are you working on now, Mike? Is there like a sneak peek of what's coming up next?
I've got some big projects I'm cooking up for next year, but for now, I'm just so focused on this just because it is a debate that is, I'm in the middle of it, and somehow I've gotten roped into this whole battles with Candace, battles with Tucker. I'm a little awkward about all that. I traveled in Australia last year to 8 cities, and Tucker and I spoke together. And so for me to sort of have to skirmish over these issues, but on the other hand, they're just such important public issues that I don't think the topic can be avoided. I'm not taking the Megyn Kelly view. I know these guys, and I don't care if they're anti-Semites. I'm just going to leave it at that. I don't think that's really a tenable view for anybody really in public life.
Yeah. Dinesh D'Souza, The Dragon's Prophecy Film.com. See it in theaters, stream it, get the DVD. Hey, thanks so much for being here. I really appreciate it. This was fun.
It was fun. My pleasure.
Man, I have to tell you, I did watch the movie because people are like, Mark, you didn't really watch. I did. I watched the movie. It was actually really fast. I sent it to my son too because he's a big fan of. If you know anybody who's, and I'm not going to say conspiracy theories, but I'm going to say if you know anybody who's a fan of, like biblical prophecies coming true, or in the Bible it says that Nostradamus type stuff. It's really kind of fun, and it's really great. And it's, and there is a lot of history as well, no matter what your religion is. So I would definitely recommend it if you can't get out there tonight. You know what? Why don't you stream? Why don't you stream it? It's going to be, that's how I like to do things anyway, because I can do it from the comfort of my own home. Listen, we got breaking news about this Pacific Palisades fire, but first, I got to remind you about our good friends at Augusta Precious Metals and how they have come up with an incredible plan for you to invest whatever money you have in a safe haven investment, the best safe haven investment there is. If you go to getmarksgold.com, Augusta Precious Metals will share with you a free guide on IRAs that are based not on the stock market, which, the stock market is doing great today, but check back in like a year. You don't want to put all your money in the stock market. You want to put the bulk of your money in something that is a safe haven investment, something that's up 25% this year and long-term has been secure, and that's gold. Precious metals, a precious metal IRA. If you've got $100,000 or more in an IRA or a 401k or underneath your mattress, call Augusta Precious Metals or go to getmarksgold.com. and get all the information you need, because you don't know what's going to happen as much as we like to think we know what's going to happen with the economy, as much as we like to think we know what's going to happen with the election next year or in 2028, we don't. But we do know that gold is one of the safest and most secure investments you can have. So if you really want to protect your family's financial future, AugustaPreciousMetals.com. Go to getmarksgold.com rather, and you can get all the information you need to make those intelligent decisions today. All right. So let's get to what's going on in California with these fires.
A mother of 3 teenagers who lost her home in the Pacific Palisades fire. Samantha, we're so sorry for the loss of your home and for so much trauma you've endured. What does today's announcement mean to you?
I would love to say that it means complete justice is served, but that is not how we feel. I think that when you have an arrest like this, yes, it's nice that we have done something to show that someone's responsible, but the real people responsible are the sort of people, the government, who is behind the infrastructure that failed an entire town. So when you have 7,000 homes destroyed, you cannot blame that on one man. You have to blame it on the fact that that day, 33% of fire trucks were not operational. The reservoirs were empty. There were so many failures at the government level that led to an entire town being decimated. And you can't pin that on one person.
Although there was an arrest, and that's what she's referring to. This guy this is from acting U.S. Attorney Bill Asaley. Today we are announcing the arrest of 29-year-old Jonathan Rinderknecht on a criminal complaint charging him with maliciously starting what became the Palisades fire in January. The complaint alleges that Rinderknecht started a fire in Pacific Palisades on New Year's Day, a blaze that eventually turned into one of the most destructive fires in LA history, causing death and widespread destruction. Among the evidence that was collected from his digital devices was an image he generated on ChatGPT depicting a burning city. While we cannot undo the damage and destruction that was done, we hope his arrest and the charges against him bring some measure of justice to the victims of this horrific tragedy. Rinderknecht's initial appearance is scheduled for today at 1:30 p.m., which was just a few minutes ago, and he is presumed innocent until proven guilty. Now, here's the dude, 29 years old, And here are the images he created apparently on ChatGPT. Again, just so you know, your ChatGPT history is not private. And I'm pretty sure anything your ChatGPT and any AI generated images you may have, trust me, I know about AI generated images. They go on, they don't go anywhere. They go on forever. So here's these images of what looks like a once sprawling and vibrant city on one side, and then a burning city on the other. And it looks like he had several. That's how ChatGPT works. So anytime you're creating images, you get multiple, like you create 2 images and then you pick one and then you say, redo this or add some this or take away that or whatever. And then eventually you get to what you want. So this was his digital AI generated, artificially generated, I guess you would say, fantasy. And then for whatever reason, allegedly, he made it come true, which caused death and destruction and mayhem all through California. Thousands of homes lost, billions of dollars of destruction, and of course, the loss of life, which is unconscionable. And this is, like I said, this is a story that's breaking now. One of the interesting things about this is that you may remember everybody on the left, Bernie Sanders, everyone else, this guy here, they all complained about climate change. They all said it's climate change. They all said we haven't had rain. The climate change is affecting us negatively. The fact that...
Now, I want to bring in Samantha Edis, a mother of 3 teenagers who lost her home.
Hold on. There we go. The fact that the forests are so dry is because of climate change, and that doesn't seem to be the fact at all. Although she did point out, this woman, that deforestation may be an issue. If you're not clearing away the brush, if you're not clearing away the dead wood, then when a fire does start, no matter how it starts, whether it's a lightning strike, whether it's natural or in this case unnatural, it's going to spread and it's going to cause destruction. And that is something, of course, that you can lay clearly on the feet of Gavin Newsom. When you look at the water not coming down from the reservoir into the fire hydrants where it's needed because of the smelts that Gavin Newsom felt he had some kind of duty to protect, that is something you can blame, of course, not on climate change, not on nature, but on mankind. And that is something that Gavin Newsom still has to answer for. But that's a breaking news story today that we've been following and that we will continue to follow. And of course, the other story is Pam Bondi. Pam Bondi, we played a couple of these this morning during the 47 Daily Podcast, which if you don't listen to the 47 Daily Podcast, I would 100% listen to the 47 Daily Podcast if I were you. But man, she went at it. We played a couple of my favorite clips. What I'm going to play again. She went after Dick Durbin in Chicago because Dick Durbin, the ranking member on the committee, on the Judiciary Committee, where she was for an oversight hearing, Dick Durbin started to complain, started to criticize her, and she was not having it. She wanted everybody to know that, let's be honest, there is a problem with Chicago. There's a problem with Illinois, but it's not me.
The word is, and I think it's been confirmed by the White House, they are going to transfer Texas National Guard units to the state of Illinois. What's the rationale for that?
Yeah, Chairman, as you shut down the government, you voted to shut down the government, and you're sitting here, our law enforcement officers aren't being paid. They're out there working to protect you. I wish you loved Chicago as much as you hate President Trump. And currently, the National Guard are on the way to Chicago. If you're not going to protect your citizens, President Trump will.
I wish you loved Chicago as much as you hate President Donald Trump, which is, if that's not a plaque somewhere in the DOJ yet, that should definitely be a plaque somewhere in the DOJ. And she said, look, this is not our fault, and we're trying to help, and you're standing in the way. The murder rate in Chicago is exorbitant, and we didn't have anything to do with that.
Your city has a murder rate 5 times higher than New York's. 571 homicides last year. If you were serious about protecting your people, you would be asking this administration for help. You're saying that we're coming into your state and your city. We're there to help make America safe and Illinois safe, whether or not you want to.
And that is the role of the federal government. That is Donald Trump's job, is to protect Americans when they're under attack. And it could be that they're under attack by foreign bodies or terrorists. It could be that they're under attack by some kind of virus, or it could be that they're under attack by the dereliction of duty of their elected officials. But wherever they're under attack, and by whatever they're under attack from, Donald Trump and the Department of Justice are going to step up and do what they need to do. She also went after Amy Klobuchar for voting to shut down the government. And she was not in the mood. Like I said, she was not in the mood to deal with anybody's crap yesterday. And she wanted everybody to know, I am not in the mood to deal with your crap. Do I have the Klobuchar one? Oh, no, I have the Blumenthal one. This is great.
I do have a question. In the merger that took place,
Which merger? You've listed many.
Involving American Express GBT. I understand that Brian Ballard, longtime backer and head of the law firm where you worked, was instrumental in lobbying the Justice Department to drop that lawsuit. It was dismissed, so it's not subject to a court review. What conversations did you have with Mr. Ballard?
Senator Blumenthal, I cannot believe that you would accuse me of impropriety when you lied about your military service.
I am
you
not
lied.
asking
You
you.
admitted you
I am
lied
not
to be
accusing you
elected
of
a U.S. senator.
impropriety.
You
I'm asking
lied.
you
How
about
dare you? I'm a
conversations
career prosecutor.
with Mr.
Don't you
Ballard,
ever challenge my integrity.
had
I have
apparently-
abided by every ethics standard. Do not question my ability to be fair and impartial as Attorney General, and anything
You'll
with
answer that
my
question to
former
another of my
firm,
colleagues.
Ballard Partners.
Thank you.
Yeah. And then today, the Democrats were totally caught off guard. And they did not expect Pam Bondi to show up with such, I guess you would say, spit and vinegar. And so now they're spinning it as she was just so angry. She was just so bitter. Clearly, Pam Bondi is unhinged. Clearly, Pam Bondi does not know what she's supposed to be doing, so she's lashing out at the Democrats. They were unprepared for Pam Bondi's testimony, so now they're trying to paint her as the one who's derelict in her duty.
Well, I was really struck, Casey, by how aggressive, combative that Attorney General Bondi was today, particularly with Democratic senators questioning her. Senator Blumenthal, for example, was right after me, and he asked some of the same questions I had at greater length about the indictment of Jim Comey. And she immediately launched back at him, attacking him with issues raised in his last senatorial campaign that were utterly off the point and had nothing to do with the hearing.
Well, but fun fact, that's a lie, because we all heard the hearing, and he wasn't at all talking about what was going on with James Comey. He was accusing her of indiscretions and ethical problems with the Ballard situation. I don't know. I guess Chris Coons doesn't understand that these things are also televised, and we can actually go and see exactly what was happening. And the attacks against Dick Blumenthal, or Da Nang Dick, as Donald Trump calls him on Truth Social, are not. I mean, look, they've never been solidified. They're still an issue for him, and they're still an issue for the people of Connecticut, because when he ran against Linda McMahon, who is now the education secretary, he lied about his service in Vietnam. And a lot of people don't like that.
But were ad hominem attacks at him and his truthfulness and his integrity. That repeated a pattern that...
Again, she was being attacked on her integrity. So what Chris Coons is saying is it's okay for Da Nang Dick to attack Pam Bondi on her integrity, which was unfounded, but it's not okay for Pam Bondi to respond attacking him on his integrity, which was founded.
It began with the very first Democrat to question her, Senator Durbin of Illinois, and continued until Senator Schiff of California. So it was an unusually aggressive and combative performance by Attorney General Bondi. A key part of what the Judiciary Committee does is conduct oversight, and I was glad that we had a long and full oversight hearing today, 10 minutes for each senator to ask a wide range of questions, but it felt more like a boxing ring than like a senatorial oversight hearing.
Yeah, and you got knocked out. That's the problem. It felt more like a boxing ring than a senatorial hearing. And Pam Bondi went 10 rounds with the Democrats and ended up winning in a KO. That's why they're mad. That's why they're upset. It's amazing to me. They roll in there and they grill her with questions. They try to paint her as somebody who's unethical. They try to paint her as somebody who's lied in her career. They try to blame Donald Trump for the crime and the outbreaks of what's going on in Portland. And then they get mad when Pam Bondi hands them their butts on a platter. They get mad when they get walloped because they're totally unprepared. They wanted to be the attackers. They wanted to be the ones beating up on Pam Bondi, not the other way around. And now that it is the other way around, guess what? They can't handle it. And they're crying to CNN. And of course, CNN is going to let them cry. This, by the way, is typical because the Democrats are the root cause of every problem. In Portland, they are the root cause of what's going on in Portland. Their constituents, the voters in Portland, are complaining about it, begging for help. And of course, they're ignoring it. This is a woman from Portland, Oregon. Listen to this.
This is really bad right now. I mean, this is like a war zone. It could be a war zone. I do feel for them, 100% I feel for them. But it's scary.
It's scary to live in Portland. It's scary to live in Chicago. It's scary to live in Washington, D.C. Psych, Donald Trump made Washington, D.C. great. Now it's not scary anymore. That's how these things work. The people voted for change. They voted for President Donald Trump, and they're getting change. The Democrats did not vote. They voted for Kamala Harris. They wanted things to stay the same. And the worst thing you can do to somebody who wants the status quo is change. It freaks them out. It backs them into a corner. It makes them nervous and they attack. And that's exactly what the Democrats are doing today. We got a, look at that. We got a super chat on YouTube from My VA Lady virtual assistant service, $10. Wow, that's amazing. It says, tune into Rumble at the KimIversonShow.com, 5 p.m. for a major announcement from Larry Sharpe. Find out why the old New York is not working. It's time for hashtag a new NY. Check out LarrySharpe.com for info. My VA Lady, thank you so much. We appreciate that. Thank you so much for your support too. $10 super chat goes a long way. We also got one on Rumble. It looks like a Rumble rant from Marielba67 who wrote, I'm Puerto Rican and I abhor Bad Bunny. If they want a Hispanic artist, they could have Luis Miguel, born in Puerto Rico from Mexican parents, has a great voice and wears a sombrero. They had Shakira. That's great. I do. Hey, hips don't lie. That's all I'm saying. Listen, thank you so much for joining us today. Make sure you're subscribed, by the way, to this channel. Make sure you're subscribed to the YouTube and the Rumble, wherever you happen to be watching. Make sure you set those notifications so that you continue to get notified every single time we go live. Because if we go live, it's because we have some great information, some important information where we want to entertain you and keep you informed. We want to keep you enlightened as to the situation at hand. We want you to be prepared for the attacks that are coming, and they are coming. Left, right, and center. The attacks keep coming. The hits keep on going. And we want you to be prepared. We all want to be prepared. We all want to stick together. We all want to learn together. We all want to train together because this fight continues. We're going to have to continue to battle, to fight, because we got a long road ahead so we can save the Republic.